President Muhammadu Buhari has allegedly approved the removal of the Yobe State Governor, Malami, as the Chairman Caretaker Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee, CECPC, of the party. Buni, who is currently in Dubai for medical reasons, was replaced by his Niger State counterpart, Abubakar Bello. A faction of the APC government was alleged to have complained bitterly to the president that Buni was not inclined to hold the convention as rescheduled because there were no preparations on ground to indicate so. In reaction, the president was said to have immediately directed that Buni be removed and replaced by the Attorney General of the Federation, the Minister of Justice, Malami, and the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, and another top Villa player were said to have intervened on behalf of Buni. They were said to have reminded the president that it was only neck of the party that could convene and remove Buni, and after he must have been given 7 days' notice of removal. They, however, contended that anything outside the laydown process could be challenged in court with the potential of disrupting the rescheduled March 26 convention date. However, it was not certain whether the intervention changed the president's mind, but some insiders revealed that some governors went to ambush the president just before he left the country without their knowledge and created a totally false narrative that Buni did not want to hold the convention. Meanwhile, the Niger State Governor, Abubakar Bello, who is said to have temporarily been appointed to take over the ruling of the APC from Governor Malami, will meet with members of the CECPC at the party's secretariat today at 10 a.m. But the interim secretary, John Akwanudehe, is planning to shut down the APC secretariat. There is fire in the APC. Fire.
This looks completely shambolic. This is dreadful. And I suppose it goes back to January, I believe it was, early January, when President Muhammadu Buhari warned his party that if they don't get their act together, that PDP will take advantage of that and win the election next year. So I think he's feeling the need now to step in and take matters in his own hands. There have been a lot of, opposing voices towards Malami. We've all heard that rhetoric. So I guess now he's decided to act. Now, Malami has his supporters. As you read, they are saying that those allegations that he's not interested in organizing a convention are unfounded, that plans are going full steam ahead in preparation for the convention. They've had their subcommittees named. Those committees are supposed to be inaugurated. We're supposed to be hearing today about the zoning committee, so that those allegations that he's dragging his feet are false. However, the fact is that the convention has been postponed before. So it does look as if he's dragging his feet, even though action is allegedly been taken now. And also there's another claim that it's political vultures. And I remember that phrase because I thought, what is this mudslinging amongst members of the same party? If PDP was referring to members of APC as political vultures, nobody will bat an eyelid. But it really does look terrible when members of the APC are accusing each other in this manner. So they're saying that it's political vultures trying to get Buni out of the way because of their own selfish political interests and the positions that they're aspiring to. Whatever the facts or otherwise of this situation, it looks a complete mess. And if the ruling party is in disarray, then we wonder about governance, the quality of governance that we're getting. There's just no polite way of saying it. It's a total shambles. It's embarrassing.
It's really embarrassing. To balance the scale, when you look at the APC and the PDP, sometimes you ask, are they both ready? Because the PDP has its own problems, the APC is on fire.
Yes.
At first, the APC said they were going to have a primaries. They said it was going to be 26th of February, which they had a month to plan, ample time to plan. Close to the primaries, everything fell apart. Now, they have even released the schedule for the primaries that will happen on the 26th. But now, everything is falling apart. Because there are discrepancies, and can I use the word vulture, or is it safe to say vulturism, or what do we even say here? What is happening is that there are two big factions in the APC. Those that want to do their bidding, and those that are against Malami. So there's a big fractious fight, and it's part of those factions that went to meet the president and said XYZ to the president, and he took their action. If that action goes as planned, there are going to be legal implications. It's going to be an easy sweep to contest in courts. And don't forget, they are still struggling to vacate pre-existing court orders to clear the way for their primaries or their convention in the first place. So if this goes through, let's see what happens 10 a.m. this morning. If the governor of Niger State walks in there, we'll see the revolts. Akpanude here said he's going to shut down the secretariat. As all of this is happening, INEC has shown us the way with their timetable. By June 3rd, if you don't provide a presidential candidate, you're as good as done. And APC should remember what happened in Zamfara State.
And Rivers.
And Rivers. So it is very easy for everything to be nullified for them. And as you say this, let's also balance it out. The PDP too has not gotten its act together. And with all of this happening in the APC, it was obvious that even that zoning that they said they did for party executives to various regions, as a big faux pas, dead on arrival. As claimed by somebody that gave speak for the APC, that nothing was released. As this is happening, the PDP is not any better. So what is there for Nigerians, really? Because I'm more concerned about Nigerians, not these politicians.
After the 2019 general election and the reviews, we need to remind ourselves that one of the fallouts of the review was INEC saying that internal party democracy is very important to the consolidation of democracy in Nigeria and for the sustenance of the democratic project. And on many occasions, the head of INEC always pointed this out. So it's therefore unfortunate to see that as we prepare for the 2023 general elections, and even as we have seen, either in the by-elections, off-cycle elections, and in the processes leading to those elections, that the politicians do not seem to have learned their lessons. They seem not to have taken a cue from the past experience that we had in 2015 and again 2019. The second point will be as follows. Before the meeting that the party had towards the end of January, we had guests on this program, and each time we reminded them that the All Progressives Congress was a factionalized party, a party divided down the middle. The standard response was to say, no, the party is not divided, that everything was a family affair, and that in any political party, it is usual for people to agree and then, and resolve their differences, or what the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir Rufai, referred to at that time as disagreement rather than division within the party. And we try to congratulate them that they've been able to put their acts together. But it will appear that we're a bit too optimistic about the circumstances of the party. What has now been confirmed is that, in fact, what we're dealing with is not disagreement. What we're dealing with is division. And if you look at some of the details, the president is alleged to have been the one to have given the directive that the governor of Niger State should take over the party. Malami, who is away in Dubai, we're told, for a medical trip, should be replaced. But we're told that the Attorney General has pointed out that, look, only the National Executive Committee of the party can replace the chairman of the caretaker committee after the chairman of the extraordinary caretaker committee has been served 7 days notice. Yeah. So it will appear in this case that, it's not the appropriate body that has taken that decision, and that Malami did not get, that 7 days notice. So if he chooses, or if any other party who has a locus in the matter can go to court and challenge it, or will Malami be persuaded to resign? Because the president, as the leader of the party, could still have some kind of power to just say, look, you resign. This is the way forward. The allegation is that there are no signs on the ground that Malami and his committee will want to conduct the March 26th convention of the party. Well, the defense from the other side is that no, it's some governors who has been mischievous. And you recall that Malami at the meeting in January threatened to resign because he said some governors were criticizing him unfairly in terms of performance. So all of this does not look good either for the party or for the democratic project. Well, Tundu, you've made a point about lessons that they can learn, and Rufai, you talked about Zamfara and Rivers State. Well, would the party be able to resolve its differences? All those factions that are trying to take the top slot within the party towards 2023? Would they be able to place the interest of the party first and the interest of the country, in fact, ahead of the interest of the party? Well, 10 a.m. will be critical because we're told that Akwanu Dehe, the secretary of the party, has said Governor Bello of Niger State is just a member of the interim caretaker committee. He's not the secretary, and hence he lacks the powers to summon a meeting. So we'll see what happens, but whatever it is, all the members of the APC should conduct themselves after the fashion of gentlemen. They must be reminded that they are the ruling party in Nigeria today, and they have an obligation to show a good example. We don't want a situation where, the whole exercise this morning will end up in fisticuffs. There's that caretaker committee meeting. There's also the other meeting led by the governor of Kwara State.
Zoning committee.
Yeah, the zoning committee, the zoning formula committee. So we hope that before 10 a.m., peace will prevail and good reason would come along with it. Well, on that note, we'll take a short break now.
Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from South Africa. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Very good morning to you. Yes, so basically, as you'd expect, Asian shares not very resilient overnight, and they were crushed by what's going on in Ukraine. And so Hang Seng down the most, round about 4%. The Chinese mainland down about 1.5%. But some very interesting figures actually out of China over the weekend. It's set now. This is a big political meeting that takes place in China every year and at least every 6 months as well. And it's set its GDP target of 5.5%. Now this is the lowest since 1991. So I think it tells you a lot about what's going on in China. They've also upped the way they're going to try to help lower growth by having more spending on infrastructure. So not exactly on what yet, we're not quite sure about that yet, but that's the shift as far as China's concerned. So lower than expected GDP expectations over 2022, unsurprisingly. Let's just get, there's been a few forecasts over the weekend about the fallout from what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. The US economy is going to slow. Europe risks recession. Russia will plunge into a deep recession. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that the ruble's fallen by about 40% since the beginning of the year, since the beginning of this crisis there, and the central bank has upped interest rates to 20%. On average, it looks like the US GDP will be growing by 3.2%, and this is going to be an additional problem for the Fed as it tries to navigate what's happening on an inflationary front. More companies are cutting their Russian ties. We've got TikTok and Netflix have limited the amount of ties they're going to have with Russia over the weekend. Visa, MasterCard, American Express all said that they will suspend all operations as far as Russia is concerned. And retailers like Zara, we've got PayPal, we've got Samsung, all joining in this. Now, as I keep saying, the key to this is whether or not it's temporary or permanent. And for most of these companies, it looks like it's temporary as we speak. And so, but the lasting effect of this is going to be completely the other way around. The head of one of the world's largest fertilizer companies has been saying that the Ukraine war will be catastrophic for global food. He's saying that Yara International. It operates in more than 60 countries. We know how much the fallout of the Ukraine stopping exporting wheat's going to be, because we covered that last week. But this is now about fertilizer, and about 50% of the world's population is fed by fertilized products. So that's going to be actually quite big. Shell is defending its decision to buy discounted oil from Russia. What it's saying is that it's going to divert any profits to humanitarian aid. It purchased 100,000 metric tons of Urals crude from Russia on Friday. As I say, it's defending that position, wondering exactly what to do. And of course, this is the way that things are shaping up right now. The United States is already talking to Venezuela about maybe supplies, and we're hearing that Joe Biden is going to go to Saudi to talk to the world's largest suppliers there. So we're expecting a major shift. As far as the United States is concerned, equity futures all down as you'd expect, down about 400 points. And on Friday, even though there were very, very strong jobs figures from the United States, it shows how investors are in fact monitoring what's going on the war footing. There are extraordinary figures from the United States: 679,000 jobs created. Economists had expected 440,000. So the U.S. economy, no fear of actually recession right now. It is going gangbusters, but of course this is before the full effects of what's happening in Russia and Ukraine have actually been costed in. I suspect we're going to see a bit of change there. No surprise also that oil, some predicting up to $150 a barrel, some more than that. Who knows? We can all predict those kind of things. It reached about 130. It's come down to about, I've got it now, to about 129 Brent crude as we speak. But earlier, of course, it had absolutely skyrocketed. Gold is rising, as you can imagine, on hedging risk, nibbling the 2,000 an ounce level, now resting at about 1970. I've got some thoughts actually that we might want to discuss in the near future. Look, coal, gas, fracking, shale oil, all these kind of things will the world's attention now be focused on, and nuclear too, alternative fossil fuel sources. Now it appears as though nations are moving towards cutting off Russian oil. It will of course affect poorer countries, and growth predictions for those poorer countries will be actually put lower. The week ahead, yep, okay, so we're going to hear from the Fed on March the 16th. That's not next week, but the week after. However, it's customary for Fed officials not to be talking publicly about what the Fed is going to do. Apart from that, the economic calendar is relatively light, and I expect that what it would be driven by is this kind of wartime volatility. Inflation, those are the big figures this week, now looking at 7.8% in the United States, maybe even higher, the highest since 1982, and of course that includes food and energy prices. So very, very volatile week coming up.
Okay.
Okay, regarding Shell, what are the complexities? Because Shell has said that they're dedicating the profits from Russian oil towards helping refugees from Ukraine. Is that convincing? There's Shell on one hand and the Western nations who are just considering whether or not they're going to have this outright ban on Russian oil. And on the other hand, there are people who see the issue as really black and white, like the Ukrainian foreign minister asking if Russian oil and gas does not smell of Ukrainian blood. And also you've had reports of angry dock workers in the UK refusing to offload Russian oil. So really, what are the complexities? Why hasn't action been taken? It seems obvious.
Consequences are extremely confusing, as you've just noted. I mean, there are all sorts of factors about this. I think as we had this phrase greenwashing, didn't we, about environment companies suddenly adopting environmental concerns. I'm sure that the phrase war washing will be applied to companies like Shell as well. I mean, that's what they say. They say they're going to give profits to humanitarian aid. They still want to keep their supplies going. So they're on the one hand saying we still need to exist as a oil supplying company, which part of Shell is, and also it's trying to reflect some of the criticism that it would get from buying Russian oil. I think that given the fact that yes, I know about the UK dock workers refusing to unload Russian oil, but at the same time, we've got Joe Biden apparently going to see the leaders of Saudi to say to them, please, would they increase the taps so that this supply continues. So there's all sorts of a mixed picture right now. You're quite right to observe it. I think it's going to be very interesting over the next few days.
With the withdrawal of MasterCard, Visa, PayPal. Now we're told that Russian banks are now looking towards China. They've adopted the international payment system, the Chinese Union Pay, which has been there since 2002. Well, would that make much difference? And then Shell says it doesn't have an alternative. It's a difficult choice to buy oil from Russia, but that it doesn't have an alternative in the matter. Is it true that Shell has no alternative? I don't you get the impression that the Western allies are just been overtly rhetorical about their choices. Today, NATO will say, we don't want to be part of that conflict. We're only providing support. The Americans will say, well, I mean, we just want to put Russia under pressure. We don't want to fight a war with Russia. Meanwhile, people are dying in Ukraine. Zelensky was advised to fight to the last man. And then the man is fighting, and it's his country that is taking all the pressures and, being devastated by Russia. And nobody has the confidence to really face Russia. All these sanctions and withdrawals, do you think they are of any serious effect whatsoever?
Right, I think we've covered Shell actually, but I'll do it again. I mean, it's just basically it's a large corporate trying to do two things at once. It's trying to keep supply going, and it's trying to defend that as well. I mean, it is adding to a very, very complicated mix. As far as Ukraine and NATO is concerned, again, you're taking me slightly out of my expertise, but for what it's worth of what I've been reading, it's clear that NATO does not want to be seen to be taking on Russia directly over Ukraine. What it's doing is it's saying to Ukraine, we will support your right to decide your own sovereignty. Yes, of course, people are dying. We're seeing that all the time. But that's the position of NATO. Once NATO oversteps that mark, then I think it's going to be very, very difficult indeed, because then we would have a world war without question. And I think NATO is trying to avoid that. As far as China is concerned, here's the sum for you. So what is its balance of trade bilaterally with the EU, and what is its balance of trade bilaterally with Russia? I don't know the exact figures, but I know that the bilateral trade with Russia is far below what it is with the EU. China, remember, has not really taken a position about that. All China is saying right now is that it may well act as it may well see itself as a peacemaker. Well, good for it. Let's hope that actually happens. But if you, for a moment, think that it's going to side with Russia, given the amount of trade it does with the EU and the nations which are ganging up against Russia, well, it doesn't make economic sense for China. And as I said to you, right at the beginning of this report, they have revised down their GDP figures, their GDP forecast to 5.5%. It's the lowest since 1991. Okay. So they're clearly feeling the problems of growth and strength of their economy right now.
Okay, Michael, real quickly, we are all hypocrites in the world, and let's not deceive ourselves. The words of Georges Clemenceau rings true. First World War Prime Minister of France. He said, in war, petrol is more important than blood. The Americans are still buying Russian oil, so let's not deceive ourselves. That's that about Shell. Secondly, as we were speaking, FT reported now that crude oil price, Brent, has gone to $139 per barrel. That's what FT just reported now. What would that do for the world? What would that do for countries like Nigeria? Secondly, inflation rate is also up. What is the Fed saying about this? Cost of living is up in the UK. Price of beer is up in the UK. It's at an all-time high.
Well, inflation, yes. So we covered that, didn't we? We know what's going to happen. We know what the expectations are, and it's down to the Fed to decide what it's going to do. Does it increase rates? Does it worry about choking off the recovery there? It looks like the jobs market is extremely strong in the United States if you take last month's figures, again, before all this happened. So I think the Fed will be pushing towards an interest rate rise there. I feel as though the poorer countries are going to suffer from stagflation. I don't think that's any doubt about that. How their central governments deal with that, how their central banks deal with that, well, it's really up to them. But that's what they don't want to do. They want to keep an eye on inflation, and they want to use their experience not to starve off the economy there. As far as Europe's concerned, yes, we do face biggest threat since the Second World War. There's no question about that. But it has to be said that this is being fought on social media, which didn't exist then, as well as on the ground itself. And there's no question that Ukraine is winning the social media battle. I'm not a military strategist, but I read what I read, and I'm sure you do too. And what we're saying is that Russia has really overestimated the progress it would actually make in the first week. As far as oil reaching $139 a barrel, I'm sure it has. I'm sure it'll probably go more than that, and it will come down again. The question really about oil is, and you're seeing it right now, if it gets to that kind of level, what does it do as far as other industries are concerned, which produce energy? That's the real question.
Thank you so much, Michael. For updates on COVID-19 pandemic, Adesola Mara is here with us. Adesola, great to have you. Morning,
Good morning, guys. Great to be here again. Start of a new week. Morning. Well, the COVID-19 has infected more than 446 million people globally and killed almost 6 million people. Well, we rely on the Johns Hopkins University tally, which you should have on your screen any moment from now. But some other tallies that have been monitoring the COVID-19 pandemic say the death toll has actually crossed 6 million over the weekend. Some put it at 6.02 million people that have died from the virus. But again, the Johns Hopkins University tally, as it now is still reporting 5.999 million deaths at the moment. When it comes to vaccination, the tally puts it at 10.58 billion vaccine doses administered globally on individuals. Well, here in Nigeria, 17 new cases of COVID were reported officially from 4 states as well as the Federal Capital Territory in the last 24 hours. No COVID-19 related deaths have been reported in Nigeria for almost 10 days now, and that's good news. When it comes to vaccination in Nigeria, the NPHCDA says fully vaccinated persons have greatly improved, with at least half of those that are partially vaccinated now fully vaccinated. At the moment, 8.1% of the targeted population in Nigeria have now had 2 doses of the vaccines available, so they are fully vaccinated. Meanwhile, 16% are partially vaccinated. And across the country, 15 states have greatly improved the second dose uptake. Remember that Nigeria has a significant dropout rate of second doses. So people show up for their first dose and they don't show up for their second dose. No reason has been given, but authorities suspect that it's because of how they react to the first jabs that makes them or scares them away from getting the second doses. But it's now saying that there has been an improvement in the uptake for second doses, especially in 15 states across the country. Out of Nigeria, Pfizer is expected to provide around 10 million courses of its COVID-19 antiviral treatment called Paxlovid to low and middle income countries this year. A healthcare non-governmental organization, Global Fund, actually confirmed this and said that the pharma company would increase shipments later if organizations involved show that they are able to distribute these pills effectively to these countries. And a large group of truck drivers who object to COVID-19 mandate have driven 2 loops around the Beltway, arrive in Washington on Sunday. They deliberately slowed down traffic, this just to make their feelings known to lawmakers in the capital. Well, the convoy follows similar demonstrations by truckers in Canada who are upset at COVID-19 requirements and mandates, especially for vaccines. And finally, this morning, let me tell you that over the weekend, Saudi Arabia announced it was lifting COVID-19 restrictions, including social distancing in public spaces and quarantine for vaccinated travelers. This move could facilitate the arrival of Muslim pilgrims to the kingdom. Other restrictions or curbs that were lifted by Saudi Arabia that have now gone into effect on Saturday with immediate effect actually include masks. Masks will only be required in closed spaces. The kingdom will no longer require vaccinated travelers to provide a pre-travel PCR or rapid test results before they arrive the country. And of course, Saudi Arabia has recorded over 746,000 infections since it all began, and unfortunately lost 9,000 people. The kingdom has some 34 million population. Back to you guys.
Well, Saudi Arabia really adopted a scientific approach throughout the pandemic and took the hit economically with regards to the kind of massive volumes of pilgrims from all over the world that they were quite happy to suspend for years. And we can contrast that to what happened in India with the Kumbh Mela festival, or should we not? That was a complete disaster. With regards to this people's convoy, I mean, all I see here is just a cynical exploitation of, I'm trying to find a polite word, some intellectually challenged people are being exploited, because you do know that there's a massive, sale of merchandise going on. You can buy your baseball caps, Trump 2024, you can buy your pins, you can buy all kinds of merch, and it's all just really about money. They've set an aim to raise $5 million, and so far they're at $1.5 million, so they're doing rather well. And one of the directors of the nonprofit that's organizing this was pleaded guilty for fraud and is now looking probably to be arrested, because this is a violation of her probation and what have you. So the whole thing just reeks of sleaze. But unfortunately, this is what happens when they saw that the Freedom Convoy in Canada was able to completely grind activities to a halt. They're deciding to jump on the bandwagon.
The People's Convoy in the U.S., as it is called, has been on the table for about 2 weeks now, and they've been raising money, and now they are close to Washington, D.C. The question is whether they will go all the way to Constitution Avenue. But the authorities have made arrangements for that, to say that, look, while the authorities respect the people's right to protest peacefully, the U.S. government is not going to just stay idle by. So you have National Guards that have been deployed to engage in command and control activities to protect the Washington, D.C. area. And you have those federal guards working with the local authorities. But of course, it's a copycat, operation. We saw a similar thing from Canada to the UK to France, even in Israel. Some people also try to put up some copycat convoys. But the irony here is that in the last 2 weeks, we've had a relaxation of, COVID mandates in many states across the across the United States, including New York. And when the president gave, the State of the Union address, he also alluded to the fact that there will be a review of the strategy that was being adopted. Now, as for Pfizer has had orders for up to about 30 million doses of the antiviral, pill, the Paxlovid. Now, out of these 30 million, about 20 million alone is for the United States. The United States first made an order of 10 million, then another 10 million, and then the remaining 10 million is meant for, other developed countries. But now we're told that Global Fund, which is part of the ACT Accelerator Gavi Alliance group, to ensure equitable access to, treatment for COVID-19, is going to order 10 million for low-income and middle-income countries. But that's very small amount, volume, considering the population in these low and middle-income countries. But the question again is, where will the funds come from? Okay, because funding will be a problem, and then the management of the resources in those low and middle-income countries. However, it means that we will need more in that direction. And Paxlovid is said to be about 90% effective in clinical trials reports, which means that it's more effective than the other one by Merck, which is Molnupiravir, which is also being considered by the Gavi Alliance for underdeveloped countries.
Well, thank you so much, Adesma.